Hi everyone, Mark Curran. You're listening to another edition of Cross-Examination with Mark Curran. I'm your host on WSFI Catholic Radio, 88.5 FM and 750 AM WNDZ. We're so glad to have you out there listening. And today, our guest is Gary Rabine. Gary Rabine is the owner of 13 different businesses. He's a former candidate for Illinois governor. He started all these different groups, think tanks, if you will, that are helping to try to move the ball forward and to save Illinois, save America. And we're so fortunate to have Gary. Gary's a cradle Catholic, and he's got a fascinating story. So, Gary, great to have you, brother.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think one of the things that is really fascinating is that Gary, similar to so many entrepreneurs that have really killed it, a mutual friend of ours, John Spire, my wife's uncle, Gus Olympidus, who's got 65 gas stations. You didn't go to college. These guys didn't go to college. You see, even a lot of the big high tech CEOs went to college for a year and dropped out, and they killed it. So we're living in this world where everybody thinks college is somehow a panacea or a magic pill. And it really, it wasn't an obstacle for you in terms of all the success that you achieved. So tell us, what was your process growing up and how you wound up being a businessman and what have you?
Yeah, so great question. So I actually worked a lot as a kid. My dad was a workaholic. He worked in a factory in North Chicago, Goodyear rubber plant over there, hose plant. And he worked 40, 50 hours a week there. And then he worked about the same amount of hours starting his own little businesses. He did tree work. He did landscaping. He did a lot of things. Never really liked to have a lot of employees. So he was a very small business guy that did well because he could live off he could pay the bills out the factory job, and then the other work he did, he was able to raise a family of 6. And he married into a family of 3 and had 3 more. He had 6 kids by the time he was 25 years old. Right. So maybe 26 years old, I think he was. Anyway, bottom line is, so there's a lot of responsibility. So I watched my dad working his butt off all his life, and I learned work ethic. And I also learned as I watched him, I learned really communications, emotional intelligence, how to connect with a customer, how to connect with somebody working for you. What I didn't like about my dad, he was very controlling. He never wanted an employee, a full-time employee, because he actually, thought he had to control them, every aspect of what they did. And so I wanted independence. As I learned, how to work hard and kind of figured out my passion was, drive in the driveway business. I knew that I wanted to do that on my own. So eventually, I graduated high school with a couple $1,000s. I started, investing in equipment and things that I could do driveway work. And my blessing really was I did not go to college because I believe that I learned so much in doing much more for me. This is for me, not for everybody. Than I did from sitting in a classroom or in high school. I liked going to school, but I really wasn't a very good student. I liked sports and girls, right? I just wasn't much into the academic side of things.
Right.
And so that was me, right? But
yeah.
And out of high school, I knew that I could if I could do seal coating and paving and excavation.
Why that business though?
Well, I worked. My dad was into all different, residential services. There's a guy in Antioch, Illinois, Everett Tunyon was his name, and he had a little paving business. And over through high school, from freshman year on, I worked for him on a part-time basis, running his heavy equipment, rollers and pavers and skid steers and stuff. And I liked doing driveways more than I liked what my dad did. So that was kind of something I felt I had a little bit of passion for driveways and paving.
When you first started out, why didn't you just go work for somebody else? Why did you go do your own thing?
Yeah, so I really believed that I could do it on my own. My dad was, again, kind of a controlling guy, but I saw him on his own find business all over the place. I saw this Everett Tunyon, this little tiny residential paving company that was doing mediocre work at best. He really wasn't a guy that loved serving the customer as much as I wanted to. And so I thought, if this guy could do it, I'm confident I can do it and better.
So did you envision that at some point you would, become as successful as you became?
You know what? I never, success to me was how well can I serve my customers? I'm a very competitive guy.
The 13 companies combined, what's the sales they generate in a year, if you don't mind?
So somewhere around $250 million a year in revenues today. It
Terrific.
started with a couple $1,000 in 1981, and then doing my own thing and working with my dad for a while. My dad and I were partners for about 7 or 8 years. So either way, it started there with that, and I believe that my passion to be competitive and serve my customers better than my competition.
Right.
That we still do today is the reason for our success.
You went to public schools, but you were essentially a cradle Catholic. Were either of your parents very religious?
So actually, my mom loved her Catholic faith. My dad really was a workaholic and didn't think it was that important, probably, right?
Yeah.
So my mom would bring us to church, when we weren't working with my dad on a Sunday working, which was once in a while, right? We didn't go to Catholic schools. My dad didn't feel he wanted to pay extra to go to school, right? For an education. My Catholic faith really became strong when I started dating a girl that was a strong Catholic from Gurnee, Illinois.
And you all got married a long time ago when you were very young.
Yeah, we met at 19 and 18, got married at 22 and 21, and it was her really that drove me to understand the importance of our faith.
And so Gary's talking about his late wife, Cheryl, who died a couple years ago. I'm going to say 3 years ago, maybe.
You're close. 2 years and maybe 7 months now, I guess it's been.
And for those listeners out there of WSFI Catholic Radio and WNDZ, you'll know that we prayed for Cheryl Rabine, and you'll know that when Father Anthony Jelinek would say Mass, she would be on our prayer list and our prayer intentions. And unfortunately, she wasn't healed of the cancer that she suffered, but we trust the Lord in that those prayers for Cheryl were rewarded, and she was a great lady, as Gary said.
Amazing woman.
So she got you thinking in terms of the faith and what have you. When you first started out, did you feel the need to incorporate your Catholic philosophy or Catholic faith into your business?
So my business. So I what happened is I bought my dad out of his share of the business in 1994, and we were.
By the way, we're the same age, so class of '81 high school.
Yep. 1994, I bought my dad out, and at that point, we were a $2 million a year business. Okay, yes. And we worked hard and all that, but my dad really wasn't one that, as a partner, wanted to grow as fast as I want to grow. Right. My dad and I struggled because actually, right before this time, my wife kind of gave me an ultimatum. I would try to go to church with her, but 8 months out of the year, we worked every Sunday. Okay. Yes. And so she gave me a very soft, nice ultimatum. Yeah. She says, honey, if you can't come to church with the kids and I, at the time we had 3 little kids, once a month, I'm not sure where our relationship's going to go, Wow. And so that soft threat, it was a soft one. It wasn't like, I'm divorcing you, right? But that inspired me to figure out how to get to church once a month. Yes. And my dad wasn't happy about that, actually. And he was upset because now he was working on Sunday without me. And so anyway, he was so upset that him and I had separated for a amount of time in business for just for, let's say, a few weeks or whatever it was. Yes. But because I said, Dad, I like it so much, I want to go to church with her every Sunday now. And he didn't want that to happen because he needed me on Sunday to get work ready for the week. And I said, Dad, it's got to wait. Unfortunately, I really love going to church with Cheryl and the kids. And I want to do it every Sunday. And not to say that I hit every Sunday, but I was hitting them all then. And anyway, so it was awesome. Well, what happened was him and I really, it really pushed us more and more. It pushed me to understand I have to move on. I have to buy him out, or he had to buy me out, because it doesn't work when you're so far off. Yeah.
You're having said that, it always strikes me as odd when Catholics, especially, now Orthodox Christians, they have one service on Sunday. The kids got a baseball game or a football game, or there's something else, commitment wise, they can't make it. I'm empathetic to that. I mean, what the heck, one service, and you're, what I mean? And there are going to be times where there's going to be conflicts. Catholics, on the other hand, this hasn't always been the case, but it's always been the case, but it hasn't been to the level that it is right now. But you can go to Mass Saturday. You can go to Mass from 7:30 Saturday morning till 7 o'clock at night. And there's only a handful of hours where there's not a mass available being Catholic. And you can go to mass anywhere you are in the world. There's very few spots in the world where there's not a Catholic church. So I never understood that people can't like squeeze that hour in.
Can't figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, my wife likes Sundays more than Saturday nights, and I usually worked late on Saturdays as well. So either way, that struggle really became a blessing, because my dad and I ended up, I bought him out within a couple of years of that time. And we just realized we loved each other, couldn't do business together. And with that, my independence in my business vision became very strong. And I enjoyed, even though it was tough buying him out, because it wasn't cheap. I paid a lot of money to buy him out. And then I had to buy, junkier equipment because I couldn't afford new equipment, all different things. A lot of challenges happened over that time, but I was so free and independent minded in my vision for the future that we grew. We tripled in size within the next 10 years. And then we had some other challenges in our businesses for a few years. And then we grew, 30, 40 times the size we were at that point. So either way, we've been very blessed. But
yeah, it's a terrific story.
Struggle creates opportunity, in my opinion.
So we're listening to Gary Rabine on WSFI, Catholic Radio, and WNDZ. We're talking about essentially business and economics. One of the topics you're told never to talk about, the two main being religion and politics, and then money. The third topic, I should say. So we hit all the important things on this show, and we're going to talk about economics in terms of what the Catholic Church teaches as far as economics. We'll talk about socialism and communism and capitalism. We're going to talk about how is a Catholic a good steward with regards to the economics, and what we're going to need to do in terms of, and I think they're intertwined, saving this country and the church. And part of the answer is going to be economics. We're going to talk also about Gary's run for governor. So stay with us. Did you feel, as you were becoming increasingly more successful in business, that what you were learning in church, learning as far as your Catholic faith, was helping you along the way? Was prayer life helping you along the way?
100%. And it was the reason I really enjoyed going to church is my wife was very good at kind of breaking down the message afterwards, and said to the kids and myself at the time, right?
Yeah.
What'd you get out of that? We would talk about it a little bit, and then the kids would listen in, and then she would ask me. I could kind of say, well, here's what I heard, right? And then she would say, well, I think I heard about the same thing, but something that I picked up earlier in my life on that message, on this verse or that verse, was this, right? And she would kind of come up with it. She would I would kind of figure it out, but she would go deeper than I could go. And so, I feel like the coolest thing that I had was a wife that like was out to serve everybody around her all the time.
Yes.
She cared less about herself. Always said, how can I help? Whether it be business wise or it be family or friends, whatever. How can I help? Right.
Right.
And so what I learned in the first 20 years of business, in my opinion, we were out to grow business and grow dollars and all that.
Yes.
Right. But I got to tell you, I don't believe we were the best at serving our customers just solely for their best interest. And really what I learned over the course of my faith life and business life is those that serve the best, right?
Yes.
If you can solve your customers' problems because you sincerely care about them as a friend, as somebody that you love as a human being, right?
Right.
You're going to be pretty successful because that customer will feel that.
People that have been very successful CEOs like Gary that have been open about their faith and have tried to incorporate their faith into the way they run businesses. And you look at Chick-fil-A, you look at Home Depot, you look at Walmart, certainly with Sam Walton initially. Those were all faith-based CEOs, and faith was part of the way that they ran their business. Whereas you have a lot of people that will tell you that they're either an agnostic or an atheist that have been successful in terms of financially. And you look at the Facebook, and you look at Google and Microsoft and Warren Buffett's Berkshire. So all of those guys would fall in the other category where faith has no role in their running of a business. So I'd like you to comment a little bit on the one type of CEO and the other type of CEO that?
Here's my opinion, and I found this to be successful for me. I'm in a few different leadership groups of CEOs, larger CEOs in some groups, smaller in others, but a bunch of different groups of CEOs. And with that, and in almost every case, if it's a national organization that's grown large, they're telling you as CEOs in your groups, your forums of 8 or 10 people, they're telling you, we want to keep this, we want to keep these relationships strong, and we want to keep you guys fostering, great productivity in what you talk about. So we don't want you to talk about your faith. We're not talking religion or politics, right? And so every single one I've gotten into, I say, I know that's a rule, but I'm not part of this forum if we don't talk about our faith and our politics. Because if we can't talk about those two things, then I believe you can't guide your business and you can't lead in any direction if you don't understand why you're leading, right? And so,
Right.
So if you don't understand your faith, you don't understand how you connect, you don't understand the politics that's driving your market, you're going to be a terrible leader.
Well, you look at the most recent examples of Bud Light and the Dallas Cowboys and Target, and their audience, they perceived me, or maybe they didn't even care. They perceived their audience to be lockstep with the LGBTQIA agenda and everything else, and they lost a huge customer base as a result. So, I mean, one way or another, you could try to say that you're not political, but you're going to be political, and it's going to come through. Or you can try to say that you have no faith perspective. Well, you can have a perspective. It's either going to be that faith perspective or that agnostic atheist perspective that's going to run the day to day.
So my thing is this: I don't push my faith on anybody in my businesses. But I talk about it, and hopefully I inspire people to want to love God and love each other. Right.
Right.
I think that's important as a leader. If you have a faith that hopefully that you can share with somebody, they get to know you better, and when they know you better, I think they serve your same cause better, whether it's in business or community. So I think I'm confident that sharing your faith or whatever that faith is with your teammates, and actually sharing it in your core values too, right? If that's who you are and that's what you're building on, that those core values guide your business. They guide your customers' thinking of who you are, as well as your teammates and your employees. So I believe it's very important that we share that. And politics. You don't have to agree with my politics. I don't really. I mean, if you do, that's great. But I always am going to share my politics, because my politics are the way they are because of my life experiences, and that's how you'll know who I am.
Well, I'm going to play the devil's advocate a little bit on that perspective. Now, God should clearly be above anything else, including the manner in which we make a living or any one business or what have you. When struggling with that, whether or not and you have done this, you've lost money by being somebody that stood or attached yourself to the cross. At times you're going to have to, it may cost you a few dollars or what have you, but you got to stand for your faith.
No, it may cost you everything you have, right? But you have to stand for your faith. We've been able to create these great businesses, these great opportunities, because this free market system that we have in America, right? If we don't protect that free market system, which is based on God as the foundation, right? This independent-minded thing called entrepreneurship,
yes,
happens because we have a small government, hopefully, that doesn't bear down and put all their pressure on small business, eliminating their ability to even start or create anything, right?
Right.
When we're able to be creative and independent, we solve major problems for the world. America's solved more problems to the world than any other country in the history of the world, right?
Right.
Why? Because of the independence we've been allowed to have through this great constitution that our founders built. All on the foundation of faith principles.
The rally cry of the pro-abort or pro-choice, if you want the softer word, in America is, this is my body. And what's so frightening about those words is those are the words of Jesus Christ as he gave himself up for us, and that's the words that the priest proclaims every mass. it's not your body. Your body belongs to God, and you are given it, and you're a steward for it. Similarly, every penny or nickel or car or anything else that you have on earth, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God, and He's going to want you to give Him a return on that investment. He's going to want an accounting for what you did with that, just like the parable where the gifts were given. There's several parables that I could be talking about, but you know what I'm talking about along those lines. So tell me what you think, having now been a successful businessman, having created wealth that you never could have fathomed, I assume, in which your struggle in terms of being a good steward with all that.
Yeah. So my struggle is where to invest, as we continue to grow our opportunities and our blessings, right? My thing in my life is, how do I make an impact on this world that I can only make because of those blessings, right? And so for me, it's always a weighing game. Where do I invest? I was just at the First Way event last night in McHenry Country Club, raising money for a great cause that First Way is. First Way, I saw great people in the community coming together to raise money for this awesome cause, right? But I mean, for us for anybody to think that that this is our body, like as you're saying, this is we're living for God. I mean, what we do here is what money I get is God's money. And the money I invest in the future is God's money. And if I can create great opportunities for individuals to feed their families and grow their families through this entrepreneurial effort that we're creating, and I create CEOs and partners that go on and do the same thing, those same individuals can see myself and my family investing in causes we love, like life, entrepreneurship. But we Job Creators Network is something I was one of the part of starting. Like I said, Job Creators Network is an organization that's going to protect free enterprise. I'm going to invest in that, protecting free enterprise so other people have what I have. So for me, it's where do I invest our money? And as I grow, I have more money to invest in great causes. So I don't need to grow my net worth in any way in the future, but I want to be able to do more to help the causes that we love and believe in. And one of course is our church, our faith.
Yes.
Two is life. Three is this entrepreneurial environment we have with our free market society.
Right.
If that goes, everything else goes also.
There's 7 deadly sins, and for those of you that don't run through them every day, I think I would suggest that you should. It's part of your personal moral inventory. You should go through the 7 deadly sins, see whether or not you're failing in any of them. Go through the 10 commandments. And take a general inventory on a regular basis, and that definitely will help your spiritual walk. But 2 of them, pride, lust, envy, anger, greed, and gluttony. And so in my opinion, what we have going on oftentimes in our country today is a war with envy and greed. And those are both sinful behaviors, and they seem to be, a segment is on that side in terms of greed and using workers as opposed to for their own benefit, as opposed for the greater collective good. And then you have envy, where people, they see somebody else is successful and they want it without having to work. So these are both deadly sinful behaviors. Would you care to comment a little bit on how you perceive those?
Yeah, I've been blessed that, as I grew up understanding that God's there, and this is part of who we are, right? If we believe in God, we're out to be a better person all the way around. My mom taught us a little bit about faith, right? Kind of hindered by my father a little bit. But what my father taught me was to be inspired more than envy. My dad had nothing, right? But yet when we did work for somebody that had a nice house, you see that guy's a president of a little manufacturing company. Here's what he did, right? Yeah. See that? I mean, my dad was inspired always to do better and maybe serve better, right? Didn't understand maybe why. Maybe it was mostly for the money, right? Because he wanted to feed his family first. But that mindset of inspiration instead of envy was there around me always, right? And I believe that when I see people that can't get out of their own way, they wonder why they can't have great success. I also see envy there, right? And envy is such an evil thing, because instead of envy, if you could listen to the story of that success that you might want, right? and you can build your life around a story similar, right? You'll
Yes.
probably be a pretty successful person.
Right.
And so my education is 100% from story after story and mentor after mentor that I saw that I aspired to be more like, right?
Right.
And most of these people were God-loving people.
Yeah.
Most of these people, if they're going to share their stories because they're not greedy, they're going to share their stories of success because they want to see others succeed. That's not greed, right? Those people usually had love of God in their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the people that I look upon in my life. I can think of many mentors in my life that had this God-loving nature about them and sure a great faith life, and they were successful. And the biggest thing you'll hear out of all these stories, and I have a podcast also called Pitch Digger CEO.
I know.
It's
a great one too, folks.
When I dig this out of when I dig their story out of them, right? Every single time it's about not about the dollars. It's about how excited they are to serve and solve problems for their customers.
I agree with everything you've said up to this point, but Father Rippinger, who's a world-renowned exorcist and who's been a friend of the radio station, what have you, he's been quoted as saying that the Democrat Party is a party of hypocrisy, meaning that they claim to be in favor of one thing, whereas in reality, what they're doing is complete opposite. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Republican Party, and he's talking about their evil spirit. Their evil spirit is one of hypocrisy. The Republican Party's evil spirit is a spirit of greed. So the show Wall Street with Michael Douglas, the movie years ago, and Gordon Gekko, and he said greed is good. And that was the mantra. That was the philosophy. And a lot of people bought into that. And that was certainly the theme that ran through the 80s when we were, getting out of high school and what have you. That greed was good. You can have all these fancy things and everything else. Well, greed is evil. And Christ spends a lot of time talking about greed and talking about how the rich man and how hard it's going to be and what have you. So obviously that's at war with our faith. And it does exist. So would you talk about that, as you've seen it, the misuse of one's resources versus how they should be using them as Catholics or Christians?
Yeah, so I look at success and at any level, small or large or amazingly large, right? And I'll use Bernie Marcus as an example.
Could you tell us who he is?
So Bernie Marcus is the founder of Home Depot, and he's a great friend and a mentor of mine. He started this organization called Job Creators Network. He was upset. He was now on the board, I think, at the time of Home Depot, a company with hundreds of thousands of employees, right? And he saw the Obama administration passing regulations that would just decimate small business. He said, if I was in business today, if I started out in business today in the Obama administration, there's no way I could have the success that I've had. And here's a guy that, when he was looking at the regulatory environment that Obama was creating and knowing that it was great for big corporations to stunt the ability for small businesses to grow. So Bernie said, we got to start an organization. He came up with the name Job Creators Network. I was one of the first of 5 or 6 people that he called on to join and start it. It's grown to be a great organization that's delivering amazing impact today. And I'm now I'm the chair of the national finance chair of that organization. Back on the board, I was on the board originally, off as I fought my wife's. We fought my wife's challenges, and then off when I ran for governor. But then I'm back on now because we've got to grow this organization. There's no organization that raises this little money. I say little, it's a lot, but 5 to 7 million. We stopped the vaccine mandate. Okay, Biden's vaccine mandate. I was the first plaintiff and the first funder of that case. And in 2022, January 14th, we won that case for 85 million working Americans never to have to take that vaccine if they work for private companies, right? Should have gone further. It should have gone to health. It should have gone into the military. We won our case. It was only representing private businesses, right?
Right.
Okay, that saved our country billions of dollars, number one, in supply chain damage when 85 million working Americans would have been forced to take it. 15 or 20 million of those wouldn't have gone to work. What would that done to our supply chain back then a year and a half ago? Okay. On top of that, I believe it saved lives and it saved health because I'm confident that this is a bad thing for many levels. Pregnant women, young people, not necessary. Being shoved down our throats, we should wonder why, right? And this is all about big pharma and these corrupt politicians. Okay, but the last thing we won, and we've won many cases now, The last thing we're going to win, we had a case in front of the Supreme Court again against the student loan bailouts. We were the ones that we won a case at a circuit court. It was challenged by the Biden administration and heard in the Supreme Court a month and a half ago. This month we're going to hear, and I believe good news, that we won that one.
Yeah.
That's going to save $500 billion of taxes to American people. Okay, so back to this. So all Bernie saw was, we got to have an organization that's fighting bad regulation that kill jobs and freedom. All right, even though it would come at his cost, because he's still a huge investor in Home Depot.
Right.
He's going to lose money. So back to what I'm thinking is, what I'm saying is, to answer your question, that I believe we're here on Earth to make an impact, the most positive impact we can make. And if we're able to earn a ton of money, billions of dollars like Bernie, or millions as we can in our organization, if we're making a positive impact to this country, to God's people, right, to our great country of America, right, and we leave this earth making millions or billions of dollars, but we spend most of that on making the world a better place, it's a good thing. And the last thing I'll tell you, building business. If you're building business that serves others and has a foundation like ours and most great businesses have, right, you're building a business that already is doing what God wants. It's serving people. It's creating independence. It's doing all the things that
America is increasingly godless. Less and less people of faith. I think corporate America mirrors that. Corporate America, my dad was a labor lawyer. Back in the day, every corporation provided benefits, retirement, and everything else for their employees, in terms of a pension system even. And the wealth was shared. And now when you look at a corporate hierarchy structure, all the money is at the very top, with CEOs making ridiculous amounts of money and the workers making very small amounts in comparison. And the disparity in wealth in this country continues to grow. And that's a lot of that Americans are hurting. The middle class is hurting so bad that's what's driving envy, number one. And in addition to that, I think that given the choice, would a corporation in America dump toxins in the ground and create cancer clusters, regardless of as long as the cost for doing that was lower than the cost of releasing an environmentally safe product? And I tend to think, looking at time after time after time, yes. And so we have a really evil corporate culture in America right now. And I absolutely 100% believe that. And, you look at the local Lake County Corporation was making the masks during the COVID over in Wuhan, China. Nobody seemed to care about that. In the American worker. So capitalism, it only works with moral people. It's not some, miraculous panacea. When I hear an economist get out there and wants to talk about capitalism as the greatest system on earth and what have you, and when thinks that it can somehow survive devoid of people of moral fiber, that's wrong. So it disgusts me when I turn on CNBC or any of these others, or somebody gets up there as an economist and they have this great solution and they don't think God plays a role in it. Well, you know what? Both of us having been in contact and conversation with the middle class, damn it, capitalism has screwed a lot of people over the way it's in its present form.
So I believe in capitalism. I'm a huge fan. I don't believe in big government, and that's the problem. When big government gets involved in capitalism, right, and owns big corporate America, that's the problem, right? Big government kills all good things. It stunts our ability to feed our families and provide what we need to provide when you're overtaxed, right? It stunts the American dream. We're all living for this American dream. It stunts the ability for a big corporation today. This government's so big, they're putting so much pressure on big corporate America and buying them, by the way, right? They're owning and buying these CEOs, right? This is where capitalism has failed. I believe capitalism is the best system in the world, but if big government isn't in the way, if there's no big government like it once was, Walmart was not the woke organization it once was.
I agree with you, but I think government does have a role, because I don't trust the people that are running these corporations in America to do what's best for us. Their self-interest is in their little boys club, if you will, where, they get filthy rich and the regular worker gets killed. Jack Welch has been a speaker in high demand by corporate America all over the place forever. And Jack Welch, that's what he does, is goes in and kills the little guy's job and what have you. And when Jack Welch almost died years ago, and formerly a good friend of mine, Chuck Colson, who was the leader of Prison Fellowship, writes about this in one of his books. The revelation that Jack Welch came about with was not that I'm going to meet God and I need to clean up my act, but that life is short and I should never let a bottle of wine touch my lips that's not of whatever value. That's, to me, that's it. And I don't want to hear another economist get up there and tell me how capitalism is going to work devoid of morality.
Well, capitalism can't work when in a communist government, right? And we're getting there, right? We have a government today that's bigger than it's ever been, biggest government in the world, right, in the world's history. And what does that mean? Its bureaucracy has to have this fuel, right? This fuel to feed them. Yes. And the fuel to feed them is woke corporate America, right? That pays off, everybody there, right? Unfortunately, that's our problem.
I agree with you. Let me ask you this though. Catholic theology is against socialism. And we know that socialism, it leads to communism, or which is essentially a government revolutionary takeover. And even if it doesn't, it usurps freedom, which is at the core of our faith. So socialism is evil. We know that. You don't want to live. Who wants to live in a world where you're told what job you can have and what you can pursue? You can't do that. You have to go work for this government job over here. You don't have the right to start a paving business. That's what happens. We know that the playbook is old. We can look it up and see how they've run it all over the world forever.
Because of capitalism.
Yes. But the Catholic Church has, we were talking about this yesterday, two prongs of Catholic social justice. And one is solidarity, meaning we are all connected. We are all responsible for each other to some extent that we can, and we owe an obligation to the greater good of humanity. And the other one is subsidiarity. And that's the decision making should be at the lowest possible level, both in government and in business. We want more entrepreneurs, not less. And when you have these big box corporations that get in there, and because they have so much influence over our government, they get laws written to stifle competition. They get to stay open during COVID, and all the small businesses have to close. Well, that destroys the entrepreneurial spirit, and that's exact opposite of what the Catholic Church teaches regarding a sound economic model. And Chesterton writes about that. He calls it distributism. It has nothing to do with socialism. But it's essentially that we need a big, strong local economy. We don't need big boxes. We need to start having, in my humble opinion, we need to start having antitrust laws enforced again. So what would you say about that? The guy who's got 13 businesses, who's seen it all.
Yeah, no, we like to keep our businesses small businesses. So we have 13 companies. We're actually starting another company right now and buying 50% of a national company right now. These are companies that are going to make our product much stronger than it is today. Okay. But either way, what I look at it is I like having small businesses that are very nimble, very creative, and very innovative. Okay. I believe as you get larger in business or in government, right, bureaucracy happens, and people hire people to hire people so that they have this fiefdom of they think leadership, the more people under them, right? I want my leaders to be lean and mean, and I want my business to be lean and mean so they can be very nimble. Instead of this big, slow-moving ship, I want them to be like, exactly. Jet boats, right? And again, government's the same way. As government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, okay, they all want more power. The federal government's so big, they want to take power. They want to tell us what to do in our own backyards, right? Our state government, Illinois, wants to tell us what to do in every school, every nursery school, grade school, high school, and beyond, right? The state of Illinois is ridiculous. One of the worst, in my opinion, worst run governments in the country, in the world, right? Biden is, in my opinion, very similar, right? Obama was, and Trump is guilty of this too, growing government bigger, right? Why? We need to be leaner and meaner, more nimble, more innovative, and kick the crap out of every country in the world.
I think that, what Chesterton would say, there are things that government should do.
Oh, sure.
And, government has a role, as we said,
Defense.
in terms of, the most vulnerable in our society. That doesn't just include the unborn, that includes the poor, the disabled, those, with needs that they would never be able to have for themselves. So the government has a role to step in.
But communities get closer as we solve our own problems, right?
Yes.
I mean, community gets closer as we raise money for that family that's going through some trouble, right? I mean, we have a foundation outing every year, and we have a foundation that we support, Rabine Group Foundation, right? That we started 15, 16 years ago now. And it's amazing how much fun my teammates have as they come together to help solve problems of community issues. Giving the money is one thing. Investing money in our community is one thing. We're blessed we can do a lot of that. But more importantly, that is the giving of time and talent of our teammates, who, when they do this, become way closer to the community and closer to each other, right? So I mean, I agree. Government has to do some things, right, for this advantage, and they have to defend our country and all those things, right? But they don't have to do 90% of what they do today. Right. We would get closer as individuals if we're helping.
Certainly not at the federal level. Certainly the Catholic Church would be totally against the concept of big federal government. That violates every tenet of subsidiarity. So Gary Rabine, you've done so much, and I really think the world of you. Are you still an Illinois resident?
So I actually made my residence Florida at the beginning of this year. So I bought a place down in Naples, and I'm there 7 months a year now.
And that's what our taxation and overregulation in Illinois is doing. It's driving people like great human beings like this that have employed so many people and given them a livable wage. Gary Rabine pays very well, and he's a very generous man. So that's one of the problems. Gary, what some would say that we're past the tipping point, that, essentially it's over for America, as you see socialism and the atheism and all these other evils that are growing and growing and growing, that we're going to need a miracle to save this country, to save the state. You're fighting on a day-to-day basis. Tell us some of the things you have, something coming up soon as well that we'd like to hear about.
So at JCN, I'm the finance chair nationally for Job Creators Network. Job Creators Network, right? It's the thing that Bernie started years ago. I was an original founder with him, right? We're doing great things for America and freedom and free enterprise. And small businesses we're focused on, because those are the people we have to protect. We got to foster small business. So we're having an event on June 20 at Full Valley Golf Club. I got Steve Moore coming out, who's one of my favorite economists. I think he's one of the best economists our country's ever seen. Him and Art Laffer are my two favorites. Kudlow's pretty good too, right? But either way, those two guys are amazing. I became good friends with them. And what I learned as I became friends with them is and this is what we'll talk about on June 21st. And anybody interested that's a small business owner or just loves fighting for freedom, love to have you there. We still got a few tables available. But I got to tell you, what I've learned from them is much of what I learned in business, that when we use our servant heart to serve, right, good things happen. And when we don't do that, if we're just out for the temporary gratification, whatever it is, whether it's dollars or whatever it is, right, it doesn't work out so well.
Yes.
And God, I think, has a handle on this, okay?
Yes.
Because when we look at our state of Illinois, we'll use an example. Only 16, 17 years ago, okay, we served our taxpayers pretty well with the taxes, even though there's a lot of corruption. We were one of the average tax states in the country, somewhere in the middle of the 50 states.
Yes.
Okay, average, and yet we're one of the best countries in the country, or best states in the country, to start a business, to grow a business, right, to hire people, right, to go find a job. Illinois was one of the best places in the country to do all those things. Okay, and that's changed drastically over the last 15, 16 years. Why? Because we went from being average to the most expensive place to do business, the most expensive place to go to college, most expensive place to own a home. I mean, we are like one or two highest price cost tax wise in the country now. The most expensive place to own a commercial building for a business. Okay, so we went from average, where we were growing consistently, our values were growing consistently. Yes. No, families didn't want to leave here, right? We're the place that if you lived here, you're going to stay here, unless you're going to go to Florida, Arizona, because you're old.
Gorgeous city, still one of the cleanest, prettiest cities in the world, even despite the crime.
All those things, right? And the violence was kind of average also. Yeah. To now worse violence, highest tax, right? So what happens? we just like in business, if we abuse our customers, they're not going to keep coming.
Right.
They're going to leave us
Right.
and go somewhere else.
Right.
We are abusing, Illinois is abusing the taxpayer, the customer, like no state in the country. Pritzker is the worst governor ever, and he's not getting any better. When he supports and promotes this goofy mayor of Chicago and supports all his ignorance, right?
Right.
We know how bad he is.
Right.
When he does nothing to mentor Lightfoot, who is one of the worst.
I think there's a danger
before.
of somebody inheriting $4 billion.
Okay, well, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
I've seen people that inherit a lot of money. They're good people that are raised properly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not one of them.
Right. So, Gary, you ran for governor. I endorsed you. I thought you were by far the best candidate. A lot of us did. Yeah. Definitely. I wanted somebody that wasn't just smart and understood economics like you do next to no one, but I also wanted somebody that would bring a moral compass, and I definitely believed you were the right one. What did you learn from running for office? What would be interesting to Catholic listeners out there that they watch politics from the sidelines and they don't really know what the inner workings are?
So I learned that in the Democratic Party, as we know, is more socialist than maybe communist and socialist than they are Democrat today.
Right.
We see a guy like Kennedy running right now. If he is what he says he is, he's an old school Democrat.
Right.
Not a bad guy.
No, I love him. I wish he was pro-life.
He loves our country. Yeah, that's the only thing, right?
Yeah.
But he loves our country, right? He's the old school Democrat.
Yeah.
That social issues could go one way or another,
Right.
but he cares about our country.
Yeah.
We don't have many of those anymore.
He has an integrity. He's going to talk about the vaccine, or he's going to talk about what's the inner workings, even if it makes him on the outside.
Exactly. So we don't have many of those. Very, very few of those, right? In Illinois, we have I think none of those. Okay. All right. Now we look at the Republican Party. I believe in the Republican Party. We've got some great Republicans who stand for all the right things, but I can count them on less than one hand, I think. Okay.
Right.
We have more Republicans in Illinois that are part of the gig. Okay. They're happy being second place. Okay. Those same, and many of these people were my friends. I mean, I'm going to call me a friend now because I've been talking about this, but those 22 Republicans that allowed this crazy Amendment 1 on the ballot, they're not Republicans. Right. They're not conservatives.
So
they're not.
Tell our listeners about Amendment 1. Essentially,
Amendment 1 gives the unions just carte blanche to write our laws to make sure that we're never a right to work state again by the Constitution.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What is it?
Right to work meaning you can decide to be in the union or not in the union.
Right.
That's your decision. Essentially, Amendment 1 took that away and said if you have this job, you're automatically in the union, like it or not.
Exactly. So it's forced unionization, which, you know what? It's not right for Gary Rabine to say, I'm going to force you to work in my company, or I'm going to force you to do things I want, the way I want to do it. That's not what America is about.
Yeah.
So for us as a state to allow that, and Republicans, okay, conservative Republicans, and again, many were my friends. I still might say they're friends, but they're so ignorant that they let that happen.
Yes.
And when I asked my friends that were in the Senate and the House, there were their reps and their senators. I asked them why they did this, why they either voted for putting this on the ballot, or maybe they just didn't vote. They voted present, which is just as bad.
Right.
Okay. When I asked them why they did it, in almost all cases they said, "Oh, Gary, it's never going to pass. Don't get so worried. What are you get so excited about? It's not going to pass. We got to give them something once in a while, so they give us something."
Yes.
And I said, "Are you stupid?" And I said this to these, "Are you stupid?" I said, "You don't get anything from them." I said, They dominate you every day. This is one thing you can stand up for, and they didn't do it. 22 of them. So those 22 Republicans everybody should know who they are if they care about our state, because they help run our state.
Went against the grain.
When that happened, I would have stayed in Illinois, and I would have done something more in Illinois. And I'm going to continue in Illinois.
Those guys are now have a target on their back for the teachers union. Listening to WSFI Catholic Radio, 88.5 FM, 750 AM WNDZ. Our guest, Gary Rabine. I was a sheriff and had 700 employees, and almost everybody was in a union. And my dad was a labor lawyer, and even Tom Dart. I'm going to share this because he said it to me. Unions drive him crazy, and he's a big Cook County Democrat sheriff. And the reason being is that in the current union culture, they do their best to protect the worst employees, and they do their best to prevent the employer, the CEO, from rewarding the best employees. And that's not a successful business model. So something happened along the way where unions started to abuse what their original intent was. And that's why you really don't see any unions in outside of the public sector anymore, because they killed themselves. And somehow that's got to be fixed for unions, or something has to be done to grow the middle class without the current union structure. So, Gary, you have, it's your floor, buddy. I want you to wrap us up with telling what you think that Catholics should be doing to save America. And part of saving America is not just making sure that the church doesn't go into the underground bunkers. It's also going to mean that we have an economic system that's we're not going to be bullied around, and we're not going to be dictated by the likes of the Bill Gates and Warren Buffetts and all the other agnostic atheists that really don't want faith or people of faith to be successful in the workplace. So what do you think we need to do? What do those people out there that are listening to Gary Rabine think?
So union, non-union, right? I believe that unions have had a great place in history. I believe today that in our market, I'm not saying everywhere, because we work everywhere in the country. And in our marketplace, the unions have all the power and no objective opinion against them to hold them accountable in any way.
Right.
So when that happens in any form of government or business or whatever, it's a bad thing. If in my business I'm the only voice, and I put pressure on my team, I'm not going to get the best of them or the best product to my customer. The unions in Illinois, unfortunately, where we've gone in Illinois, where we're going, unions will not be able to deliver as good a product as other states where they have some objectivity, right?
Right.
Some back and forth. So I think in any case, government, business, unions, right? When you have all the power, it feels really good for you,
right?
But it's bad for the environment.
Well, the problem is that these Democrat politicians that run all these cities, they want the union vote. So here you have the union stewards, the union bosses negotiating with the Democrat governor or the liberal governor that wants them to win. And you have the taxpayer and the regular citizens on the outside of that meeting, and we're irrelevant. We're going to give them everything we can, whether we can afford it or not. And we're going to protect the laziest of them, whether that's good for our society or not. And that's the unfortunate reality.
Well, and again, what that comes down, what that creates is the highest unfunded pension debt in the country, in our state. Not just per capita. We're the highest per capita by far. We're higher. We got more pension debt in the state of Illinois, over $600 billion, more than California total, more than Texas, more than New York. How is that? They're 3 times bigger than us, right? Why? Because our politicians have been bought by the unions, and they're given whatever they want. Now you got a mayor of Chicago that is the fox in the henhouse like never before. You think this guy's going to fix the problems there, the unfunded pension deficit in Chicago? Absolutely not.
I don't think he understands.
He's going to, but the good thing is maybe he's going to crash it faster, and we can rebuild too.
Yeah. Why? I wonder why people. Gary Rabine speaks to that all the time. Dan Proft has, Jeannie Ives. So many people speak to that, and it just seems like they don't understand that this is not Santa Claus. At some point, we run out of money when the people that pay the taxes leave the state. Where are you going to get that money to pay those pensions in the future?
Yeah, well, so my opinion is this. I believe that we all need to support small business, support American business and small business, because without small business, we're not going to be the country we need to be. We're not going to be an innovative country. We're not going to be the country where this opportunity has been for all these decades, right? Or these couple centuries. We have to be in order for us to continue on as America and be able to live the American dream, or at least people aspire to the American dream. Free markets have to stay free markets. We have to have the opportunities for small business to progress.
Absolutely.
And
we need moral people to be in that.
But we need people to support. If you have a business, small or large, you need to get involved and understand. Don't close the door to politics. Don't close the door to speaking up against what's wrong regulatory wise. Right? You do that, you're part of the problem.
So we're going to close with that. I think that we learned a lot from Gary Rabine. He's a fantastic guest. But I think as we talk about these problems, we realize they're way bigger than ourselves. So we're going to close in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. Call upon the intercession of Saint Michael, because we will need Catholic warriors out there to fight for our good, to fight for what's right, to be good stewards of the blessings and the natural resources and all that the Lord has given us, and that save the economy, save the country, save the state, save the